Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri. Today, I'm joined by Caitlin Landesberg. Caitlin is the founder and CEO of Sufferfest Beer Company. On today's episode, we talk with Caitlin about what makes Sufferfest a happy accident, how she's creating the go-to beer for sweaty experiences, and why there's no such thing as luck. I had a great time chatting with Caitlin, and I hope you enjoy listening. Let's get into it. Hi, Caitlin. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to chat. And to kick the conversation off, can you tell us a little bit of context about Sufferfest, how you got started and where things are today?
Sure, absolutely. I've continued to describe Sufferfest as a happy accident. This was not something I was supposed to do or get into. I have no business being in the all-carb beer business. I got my start in high-tech marketing here in the Bay Area. I've always lived in Silicon Valley and kind of grew up in that industry. But I've always also identified myself as an athlete and played competitive sports growing up, played college tennis, and came back to the Bay Area and found my love or discovered my love for trail running and distance trail running here in the headlands, right north of San Francisco. And I think the more that my running became more prolific activity in my life and racing and finish line moments were part of my routine, so became beer. And I also never really took into account my consumption. I never really thought of myself as a beer drinker, but I quintessentially had to have it, craved it after a big workout or a long race. And not only did it taste amazing and that I craved it, but also that really was the social lubricant to kind of stick around and make friends and, compare, the gore of a fall or the sort of the battle conversations from a long and hard race that, we often described as suffering. And the Summerfest was the aftermath, the relief and the joy and the pride of finishing something really terrible that your body just underwent. So, is certainly how sort of the name was derived. But as I was thinking about what I was drinking and becoming more focused on my diet and what I was putting into my body, I kept thinking, gosh, we just get handed this beer and it could be any old thing. It could be really high hops. It could be really high alcohol. It could be super light beer from a multinational conglomerate that I have no connection to. And there was just no consistency. And I didn't have a brand that I thought really understood me, understood my values, sort of showed up at my sweatiest moments that kind of got me. And so I just sort of played around with the idea of, what would it look like if Cliff Bar made a beer or Gatorade made a beer or Do Energy Labs made a beer. And that was sort of kind of a funny ha joke that I had with myself and my run club and my boyfriend at the time. But I guess he took that more seriously than I. And for my birthday in 2012, got me a home beer making kit and also a course here in San Francisco to make my first very own beers. And I went in there kind of not anticipating obviously what I found, but just sort of my aha moment of, gosh, these are the ingredients that make up beer. And no wonder we crave it as athletes. These are just naturally occurring, organic products that we really love and use as fuel and crave, and it sort of all kind of clicked. And so I got really excited, not about sort of the craft of beer making, but rather the microbiology of beer as an athlete, and thought, wow, what could this turn into? I think that was sort of when the idea of Sufferfest Beer Company was born. I sort of set out then on coursework at UC Davis School of Brewing and Food Science and started working on recipes and thinking about how can I make these better, cleaner, smarter beers for all of us. And 2016, so 4 years later, when things were actually tasting really good, and I had a better sense of who I was really trying to serve, which was mostly myself and my friends, I decided let's do something about it, and decided to become legally compliant and get some labels on my first cans and bottles, and decided to walk the streets of San Francisco just in my neighborhood, thinking, wouldn't it be cool just to have a neighborhood grocery store that I love to go to that served my beer? And that was sort of like day one, and that was my aspiration. And the reception was so positive that I think after the first week, I had 30 or 40 pre-orders. I didn't know how I was going to deliver the beer. Everyone was asking for more flavors and brands, and I just was beside myself. So that's sort of when I started kind of getting my head down and thinking about how to build a business.
It's a good problem to have, right?
The rest is history. Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of what kicked it off.
It's an incredible story, and especially how you describe it as, a happy accident that you stumbled into in a way. But in hindsight, now when you look at Sufferfest and also the broader movement and culture around whether it's non-alcoholic beers or healthier alcohol, it seems like a no-brainer that there would be a beer for a community of runners and hikers who sweat and socialize together, and it's around the finish line or a campfire. Was it that obvious to you at the time, or when did it become, we made the thing for this group or for these people?
It was, I don't know if it was ever, I still know it's obvious, but that's a great question, actually, because you can definitely feel it, right? You feel that energy. And I don't know if I guess the moment that I could pinpoint that something was different was, the very beginning of 2016. I said it basically in March, I started, kind of really myself and I with this cooler kind of marching down the streets and taking orders and pitching right there and then to buyers. That's how it started. And then I sold directly into Whole Foods markets because at least at that point in time, the beauty of how they operate is that you didn't need to secure some big corporate meeting and mandate there. You could actually go into each store and talk to the individual buyer, and they have 30% autonomy of their own aisle. So, I could pitch them well on the premise, and they could decide if they wanted to bring Sufferfest in. And I targeted them early because it was such a good fit. And within 2 months, I think almost every Northern California Whole Foods at the local level, from the buyer's perspective, brought us in, which got the attention of corporate. And so within 2 or 3 months of business, corporate and the regional buyer mandated 2 of our products. And so that was a big deal for us to make that product. Basically, when you say mandate, it's basically all buyers now in the NorCal region have to. They don't really have a choice anymore. They have to order us as part of their overall beer schematic. And so that was obviously a real big wind at our backs early on. And then in July, I was contacted by the San Francisco Chronicle out of the blue, and they said, "Hey, we were just talking to one of your retailers, Buy Right Market, and did you know that you're the number 1 selling beer this summer?" And I didn't know. I had no idea. I mean, we were doing well, but they said, "You are outselling Pliny the Elder. You're outselling, all these top brands right now, and we just wanted to let you know and congratulate you." And we ended up doing a sort of a story on kind of the least suspecting brand out there that was really cleaning house at one of these really beloved high turn, high volume chain markets here in San Francisco. So I think that was sort of a real, those 2 things back to back were kind of a wake up call that we were onto something. And absolutely, I think that's obviously more concrete and that's a sales perspective, but absolutely, I think the wonderful parts and the parts that still blow me away are when I get photos from friends or friends of friends or even friends of friends now drinking Sufferfest at a race or at a trailhead or in a crag or after a spin class, and they're enjoying it, and they're like, just sort of saying hello to me and giving us a shout out. And I'm still floored that people are just finding us and enjoying it. And, certainly that was picking up pace, and that was kind of all around us, that people were really starting to share this between friends and referring this to friends, which I think is the most important aspect to how our brand grew. And if you get that word of mouth, friend to friend referral from a training buddy or a coach or a track club member, that's I think what really has allowed us to ignite something and grow faster. And I think that was sort of the moment that all happened together in that very first summer that we were in business, that people were really talking about how we were different. So I would say those 2 things, plus, just all those great anecdotal pieces of content that were coming into my personal mailbox and phone.
Right. And that's that part around the word of mouth marketing and the community building. And you said people were reaching out to you and telling you how much they're enjoying it and referring it to other people. Now, how do you think about that marketing piece or community piece as opposed to maybe a more traditional company who's doing lots of ad buys and TV and all the other stuff? What does the community building and marketing look like for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're one of the lucky ones. I feel really good about it. um, we've always, I think it has to do with the fact that this was a happy accident, right? That we were never really supposed to be in business, and we've been able to take risks and talk about our beer and show up as a brand the way that we wanted to as consumers of this brand, as, you know, people who really attribute ourselves as being part of this community that really is looking for a brand that represents, you know, health conscious decisions, eco conscious decisions, and a lifestyle that we can all kind of align with. And so it's, you know, I hate to use that word as a buzzword, but it's really authentic. And from day one, you know, I decided that, you know, I'm not necessarily going to just show up and, you know, pay an event a sponsorship fee and drop off some beer and get out of there. I thought, well, I'm first of all going to enter that race, but I want to run it. And then I'm going to have a beer bash with all my friends at the end. And it's going to be liquid that I love to share and that I think is very trustworthy and delicious. And then I want to hear about what people want and what can be improved. And we've really, and that sort of, that perspective of showing up, sweating with our tribe has really lent itself to being, I think, a brand that really continues to relay that we're part of this and we understand you, and we're not here to just market at you or buy your time, nor could we even afford that, right? And I think that is our unfair advantage, where we don't have a budget the way that our competitive cohorts do. You know, we really, I think, lean in and chip away at market share because we do show up and we are authentically present with community members that are, or communities that we think we're a part of. You know, no one on the team, as I was starting to hire, came from the beer industry. We were all first and foremost athletes and adventurers. Our head of finance was an ex-hockey player. Our head of sales was an NC2A lacrosse player. And then on her weekend, she refereed at NC2A club and field events. Our sales representatives are everywhere from former D1 water polo players to thru hikers that just finished the PCT and spend their weekends at REI giving free tutorials on how to do that well. Kind of the list goes on and on. You know, the marketing team, we're heavy endurance runners and cyclists. And so we go into communities not because we're there to sell anything. We're there because we sort of bring our gear, that is beer, and we're ready to go and sort of suffer with them. And I think that's what leads to word of mouth referrals. That's what leads to trustworthiness. And that is actually the way that we do need to operate too, because we don't have a budget that's going to be paying for media dollars and large scale content. So we are who we are and we're unapologetic for it. And we're not going to be for everyone, but for those who we do understand and who understand us, I think it's just a really great match.
Yeah, I would agree. And like I said, when I mentioned it being almost obvious at this point, especially I feel like for me personally, as someone who gets that scene, the runners, the outdoor community and folks like that who spend time together and are aligned on the way that they want to lead their life and their lifestyle. One of those things that I also saw on the website that certainly differentiates Sufferfest from other beer companies is the athletes who are brand ambassadors. It's not many beer companies or alcohol companies that have athletes listed on the site. What role have they played for you in the marketing and continuing to get the product out there?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, we I don't think we intended on building an athlete team, but we do stumble upon, you know, those certain someones out there in different events and different areas of our go-to-market with people who we were really referred to as community organizers. That they are first and foremost, yes, they're absolutely badasses in their own respective sports. We have some tremendous athletic competitors on our athlete team, but they probably caught our attention first and foremost because they are focused on causes and issues that they care about. And so we really do sort of leverage each other in that way. our athlete teams are able to be ambassadors and be really great models for people who are aspiring to live active and healthy lives. And that at the end of the day, we really are here to support someone just making a smarter decision or a healthier decision, or kind of being motivated to get out there and maybe go the extra mile. And our athletes serve that purpose to really kind of give people those moments of aspiration, of people doing just really amazing things that are also, on the flip side, not necessarily professional athletes. They're like us. We kind of call it the Superman Clark Kent effect, where Courtney DeWalter on our team has the fastest known time, but at the end of the day, she's a school teacher. She lives in Golden, Colorado, and she's a hilarious, fun-loving person to be around. And those are the types of people that I think we really relate to, because I think we all kind of have a Superman Clark Kent version that we want to unleash. And so they're really, helpful, because genuinely they love the brand. They drink the beer. Oftentimes we talked to them or approached our athletes not because we wanted to do some sort of deal, but we actually saw them drinking our beer and went up to them and said, "Hey, we noticed you like what we're producing here." And so we first and foremost found fans of our brand. And so that's obviously the only way that would happen. We're certainly not here to pay anyone to say like this and tell people that you like this, but rather find true blue fans of what we're doing. And then ideally we can help them come to their events or come to their causes that they care about with more furnishings. We have Patty O'Leary, who at one point during our relationship was a November Project leader, which is a free workout in city centers for people who want to get out, but potentially don't have the means to, pay for a membership or something that's more expensive. And so if he were to provide an event or talk to people about what they're up to, obviously, we're here to help him make sure that event has great traction and success for providing beer and so on and so forth. There's lots of examples in our team, how we structure it, but we really wouldn't be having that relationship with those athletes unless they were beyond their sport, the way that we're beyond beer, and being a role model and giving back to communities is sort of how we kind of shovel through to sort of find those diamonds that maybe might be overlooked and might not get the biggest sponsorships or be those professional athletes, but they're very, very important to our tribe in terms of being aspirational.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a couple of things in there around authenticity, and they're people who represent the brand already, in the types of products, et cetera, that they're already users of the products or drinkers of the beer rather. And you also said a similar thing about when you started to hire, you weren't hiring people from within the beer industry necessarily. They were also people that were very much related to your core values. Given how the company has now grown, how have you kind of thought about your role as a leader and continued to build that company culture and values as the company is now scaled?
Yeah, really good question. I think lots have changed and nothing has changed since we've been acquired. And we haven't really touched on that yet, but this is related to, I think, how we do scale and how we scale authentically. So after 3.5 years of business, and in spring of this year, actually the very last day of March, we were acquired by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and it was their first acquisition ever. And lots of great things went into that, obviously, and a really exciting time for Sufferfest. But as we scale, and now we're rolling out nationally so that we can get to every sweaty, deserving paw out there, we still hire our team and think about our team just the way that we did at day one. And so, right now we actually have a community manager role open, and we're talking to athletes who are, in a surf circle and are competitive surfers and are focused on sweating first and having their beer later. And that's still just a very, very important aspect to, again, moving into communities and tribes that we have to understand, have to be a part of, and we're not going to sort of infiltrate that, I think, very sacred circle of being a part of that or not. And so we definitely work with our own team, and we also sort of talk about, so where are we already personally passionate about? Where are we already spending our time personally? How can we sort of leverage all those great events and those things that we're doing to make ourselves happy and fulfilled as athletes? And how can we enhance those experiences with our brand and our support and our events and of course our beer. We've scaled that way beautifully. And there's other places where, we really had to sort of say, okay, we are now officially in the beer industry. We've been acquired. We are trying to run with the big dogs. And so obviously we've been able to leverage, an industry powerhouse operationally and from a sales force perspective with, one of the brands that kind of drew up that playbook. And so I think it's a really nice marriage to sort of leverage the areas that we aren't as strong with operations and sales with a brand that really knows what they're doing, but we still get to be that brand agency of record here at Sufferfest and really go about our go-to-market the way that we would if we were doing this a year ago or 2 years ago. And again, that's finding like-minded communities, like-minded run clubs and bike shops and really cool on-premise locations that, have more experiential moments for sweaty and healthy active consumers, and really going there and going a mile deep and an inch wide in some of those great places around the country. So again, nothing. We really lean on what we know. We're probably self-referential, maybe to a fault, but so far that has lent itself to the strength and the growth that we've experienced. So if it ain't broke, we're not going to fix that aspect. And to this day, we continue to kind of shoot more from the gut and really listen to our consumers and our constituents. And we're athletes first, and we look at beer as a piece of gear that we want in everybody's beer bag. So it helps us keep our North Star. And I think I'm really proud of how we're growing.
Yeah, the North Star has certainly served you well to this point. So like you mentioned, no reason to alter that. Obviously, the Sufferfest Sierra Nevada acquisition was something I wanted to touch on. You mentioned that, and it sounds like to this point, it's been a fantastic experience. So, and you already spoke to that, but one question I did have that you kind of didn't address was, how did that come about in the first place? Were you looking for an acquisition? Was it even a possibility in your mind at that time, or was it more organic?
The relationship with Sierra Nevada was definitely more organic, but because I think we had made waves and made an impression so early on, and we're getting some really great traction, we were just in a very fortunate and unique situation to receive a lot of interest. And I was not anticipating that, but interest from strategics and breweries that were focused on, M&A activities for growth. And I was definitely at that receiving end of that early on. And while it was early and I didn't really feel like there were a lot of great fits, it definitely put the seed in my brain and planted that seed in my brain in terms of how are we going to scale here? And there was a while there, and mostly for about 2.5, 3 years, where I would be asked, do you have any competitors? And I would look to my left and my right, and there weren't anyone around. We just sort of were doing our thing. There wasn't anyone around. We were doing our thing, and I just sort of felt like, hey, this is sort of who we are, and there's not much like us out there. And no, it sounds like we don't. So we're just going to keep trailblazing forward. And then really about 9 to 12 months ago, it's as if there was a memo that was sent out about, Sufferfest having some sales and creating a functional category. And that was sort of in a trade newsletter. And it felt like literally overnight, large conglomerates and breweries were sort of creating these line extensions to sort of fit into this category that the industry was dubbing as functional. And I thought, wow, we might be onto something, but we're not going to be onto something for very long if we don't have any of the platform, the sales platform and the operational platform, and certainly the budget to compete. And that would be a shame to have started this whole thing. And I think it sounds like, carved out our own category within the beer industry, and then, get kind of scooted out based on how small we were. So I was already thinking that would probably be something that would be worth our while to explore. My first interactions with term sheets and things that were given to me, honestly, were very transactional. They were very big business. There were a lot of loopholes. I had to bring in lawyers and bankers to figure out what it all meant, and nothing really felt well and good. And I decided that, for one more year at least, we're going to fundraise. And I was in the middle of a fundraising round with my internal investors. And right in the middle of that, I ended up going to a conference and happened to sit next to Jeff White, CEO of Sierra Nevada. And I presented that day and he presented that day. And we sort of left going, wow, we each had some really cool things to say up there and we want to learn more. And, if anything, let's just help each other. And Jeff had offered to help me just to figure out distribution. We were just starting to sign up wholesalers, and he gave me his email. And I don't think he had any intention of going forward either. I think we just really genuinely knew that our values were really aligned, and we were both really intrigued by what each company stood for. And so our emails sort of led to phone conversations, and then we started leading to meetings, and we were collaborating and coming up with ideas. And I think we just sort of found our sort of beer soulmate or our M&A soulmate without even realizing it. And I think we both really wanted to move forward with a collaboration, but they're a private company and they're very values driven, and they were a great fit for us. And I think it became clear that if we were going to go and move forward, we all wanted to be all in and really genuine about this partnership. And we didn't see any other way forward at a certain point, except for joining the family. And so it was very organic, and I'm so glad that I was able to have those other conversations and term sheets, because I was able to see how different the conversation was with Jeff and Sierra Nevada. It was really focused on the future, on being on the right side of history, on values, on how to treat the team if we were to do this. Just very, very, very different than I think how some businesses sort of approach an M&A experience. So I applaud them. I was really proud, and I still am very humbled that we were able to join their family. But that's how it happened, very, very organically, the start of the line.
That's an incredible story and refreshing to hear, because like you mentioned, you said some companies don't approach it that way. Most companies don't approach it that way. It can be very transactional. And just thinking about that for a second, from starting the company, you describe it as a happy accident, and then it growing and you being surprised at people taking interest in it. And still, you said to this day, you're still humbled by the growth of the company, the community, the Sierra Nevada acquisition. What do you attribute that all the success to? Do you step back and think, wow, I'm very lucky and fortunate for this to have happened? I'm sure you're grateful, but is it, just a matter of you being you and following your North Star and being authentic and moving forward with passion, and these great things and your hard work have led to this outcome? Or have you thought about it kind of to that level to be able to encapsulate it?
Yeah. I mean, I come from, I use a lot of athletic analogies or things, because that's just, my coaches have always given me those to think about. But my tennis coach used to say there's no such thing as luck. I would hit a winner or something, and I would say lucky shot. No such thing as luck, because you were on the court for hours and hours practicing that shot to have made it, right? It was not luck. You were there prepared to hit that shot. And so maybe there was the right breeze and maybe the right bounce and just a little bit of a swing to make it just that much more perfect. But, you were there. And so I think a lot about that there is no such thing as luck. I think, people say right time, right place. And I think that there are elements of that. But at the same time, I, in some way, was just sort of very ignorant and Pollyanna to this, because I wasn't trying to build a company. I was trying to build a brand for myself and my friends. And in some ways, that made me very dangerous. I didn't have to be risk averse or be guarded. I was sort of speaking up and talking to a lot of people. And I think probably adding a refreshing and new perspective on a industry that is ripe for disruption and needs innovation and needs more females even at a basic level. Just needs a different perspective there and a different way to hire and a different way to make beer. We talk about, we use a saying here at Sufferfest that we're beer made better, and we're not trying to toot our horn here, but we really believe that word better is not just making the liquid better, which we think we're obviously choosing and sourcing really great ingredients and non-conventional ingredients, but that we're a B Corp, that we're woman founded, that we hire a lot of different people from different walks of life, that we're really trying to challenge convention within an industry that kind of been and looked more or less the same for a while. And that's not to say that people aren't doing cool and different things with the liquid, but it's that whole package. And I think I think a lot of those things have really kind of all added up to Sufferfest receiving more eyeballs and maybe more attention, given that we haven't had to sort of check ourselves or go through the layers of bureaucracy, or, we've always built ourselves and operated as a small entrepreneurial little startup, the way that a small business would here in Silicon Valley. And so for all those reasons, and obviously I'm rambling now, I can't pinpoint it, but I do think that just the way we approach business and our business acumen alongside the blood, sweat, and tears of our brand. I mean, we basically hang our hat on the fact that we just persevered and we put one foot in front of the other. And it was just a really hard and ugly business to get right. And there's so many disasters that can happen, not just in beer, but obviously in CPG. And we just sort of defined ourselves by how we problem solve. And so I think that's where you think, and you say to yourself, there is no such thing as luck. Like we really worked hard to get here, and I'm really proud of where we ended up. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, and I think
I'm able to reflect there.
Yeah, and in reflecting on it and all the things that you mentioned, to a certain extent, with all of that said, it speaks for itself. It's maybe you don't have to encapsulate it into one definitive statement or sentence, kind of point back to your, sports analogies at the scoreboard, and it seems to be working out. So just keep doing what you're doing in that sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. And changing the gears a little bit there from Sufferfest specifically to the industry more broadly, you talked about how at some point it felt like there was some type of decision made, like, hey, we also have to get into this functional category, look at what Sufferfest has been able to do. And of course, for the sake of, the Fit Insider listeners, it's talking about the wellness industry more broadly and how it's become a huge $1 trillion industry. Do you think about Sufferfest as having a place in like the broader wellness industry or the kind of sports and fitness realm, or do you think about it as a functional beer? Where does it fit in the landscape of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something I think a lot about. From day one, I've said we're not a beer company. We're a gear company. We see ourselves as a lifestyle brand, not a beer company that's here just to provide liquid. We're here to provide experiences and support and coaching and gear. Even your favorite run kit or cycling kit. We want that to be Sufferfest. So is Sufferfest a beer brand or a lifestyle brand? I tend to think it's a lifestyle brand. And we really want people to be proud of, what they're assigning themselves to if they are drinking our product, or they are wearing a T-shirt, or they do happen to join one of our flagship races where we sort of take over an area and give back at the same time. So yes, health and wellness and that healthy and active community, I think, has so many great food and gear and product options, and they're making a lot of great choices. Many of them are very focused on the environment. We come in and we also are focused on social responsibility, environmental responsibility, providing cheer and celebration for good jobs and well done, and providing motivation to kind of get up there and get out there. So yeah, we I think believe in being part of that ecosystem of health and wellness. And we tend to work with like-minded partners in that very same vein. So many partners that we work with, for example, are REI and the North Face and Patagonia and GU and Ultimate Direction, and you sort of name it. I think we find ourselves that our values and what we're trying to do is very like-minded. And I sometimes forget, sometimes I'll think about like other brands that maybe focus on children or women's and girls issues. And then I'm thinking, oh no, wait, we serve alcohol. We can't do that. I forget that at some level, we're still a beer company because we are so entrenched in health and wellness. And, overconsumption and some of those concerns around alcohol has actually been something that I want to take more thought and focus in, but it's never been a concern or an issue necessarily in our community and how we do events, because the mindset is, again, really a product or a moment to celebrate a job well done. And we're really here to serve a very specific occasion and really be that go-to brand to help celebrate a job well done and to honor perseverance, to honor grit, and then kind of get out and not be there for everyone or every moment or everything. And so it's really allowed us to be razor sharp about where we fit in the ecosystem. But I do think about us as a lifestyle brand, and hopefully people being really proud to assign themselves to our community in whichever way they see fit. And if it's not even drinking the beer, that's okay. But maybe they have a gym bag, and maybe they signed up for one of our Sufferfest courses at REI around how to through hike more successfully. Those are things that we believe are a natural extension of the brand that we hope to provide go well beyond the liquid that we serve.
Certainly, and that lifestyle brand, the authenticity that you bring to it makes it that much harder that as other people try to, fast follow or copycat or, even follow your lead, it makes it much more difficult without that authenticity as part of it. And kind of wrapping things up, and we'll get you out of here on this. Recently, I saw the release of the Head Start Stout, also the multi-packs, the variety packs. What else is on the roadmap? What else is coming up, and kind of what else are you most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting right now. I think we're not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves from a product pipeline, because we are, as I mentioned, we were just only serving and distributing here in California and Colorado, and now we're serving in almost every state in the union. So that rollout is obviously gargantuan, and we're out training the sales force and working events all over the country, and really just trying to get the Sierra Nevada company and sort of the entire mothership, if you will, kind of, trained up and greased up and ready to go and fight the good fight. Their sales force now and their operations give us, our little brand, a chance to compete. But down the roadmap, or down the pipeline, I guess, to that roadmap, things that I'm certainly excited about are obviously being nationwide. That chance to compete is just a huge, huge moment for me and my small team. We'd always get stories from all over the country, race directors and runners and cyclists, and photos of saying, they smuggled the beer here, and could we get a keg here, and we could never deliver on that. And now to say, absolutely, we're coming for you, is just, we're beaming with pride, and we really feel like, this was motivational, and then it became more like a responsibility. And I really felt a responsibility to get this to other places. And so that's number one, is this rollout right now that we're experiencing as we speak. We'll be focused on that for this year and really next year. But you'll see more new products that really do stay on that bleeding edge. And we really believe that the light beer industry is ripe for disruption. It really needs some innovation. There's 87 million barrels of American light lager that are consumed every year, and in my opinion, they don't give a lot of variance in terms of flavor, and they don't give a lot of transparency in terms of how it's made and what they stand for. And we really want to be that alternative to a light beer that you might recognize from a major conglomerate. And we believe that we've got cleaner and smarter and better alternatives, both from a product perspective and also just a program in which we can give back to our communities and our constituents. So we are keeping our beers within a light framework in terms of low cal and carbs, and our beers have all non-conventional ingredients. We source them from local farmers or other B Corps, and we really go to market in, I think, a very conscious way. And so I'm excited to hopefully turn, that light beer category on its head and really focus on how we could provide that same drinker more options and more alternatives that might be a choice that they could really get behind. So beers that are coming down the pipeline, again, sort of focus on low cal, low carb styles that you love and adore, that are beloved in a beer drinking community, but obviously have our own spin on it, non-conventional ingredients and go to market. So I'll leave it at that, because there's a new one coming this spring, and we're super, super excited, and we're going to unveil that with a really big, cool partnership, and I'll just have to give you the inside scoop as soon as I'm ready to talk about it.
We're ready. It's certainly a lot to look forward to and a lot to be excited about, and just really grateful for you taking a few minutes to share the story and give us the update today.
Likewise. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.